Good afternoon, lovely people of YouTube. Welcome back to Maverick Baking and welcome to the new Maverick Baking Kitchen. Today I thought I would try out a little idea I had for a new series. So you guys already seem to really enjoy the junk food reviews and the occasional kind of recipes that I post here. Today I thought I would begin a little series where we kind of combine the two. Our supermarket shelves in the UK, in the US, in many countries have kind of pre-made baking mixes, which in theory you just pick up, you add a couple of ingredients and you have a cake. I kind of want to put these to the test to see if they're actually worth your money. Today we are kicking that off with a big one. We're going to be starting with the world famous Momofuku Milk Bar's Compost Cookies. Now, the Momofuku Milk Bar, also known just as Milk Bar, has been the inspiration for a few of my recipe videos, which I will kind of link below for you guys, or you might see them down the recommendations bar. Thanks, YouTube. They are a massively popular bakery chain that began in New York and now they've kind of exploded all over America. My good friend Rich, who runs the Cookie Mill, was very, very kind and brought me back one of their kind of baking mixes from one of his recent trips to America, and I am so excited to try it today. The Milk Bar Compost Cookies are just as bizarre as their name. They are famous for just including a ridiculous amount of things, really. They include chocolate chips, butterscotch chips, peanut butter chips, coffee, pretzels, and weirdest of all, salted potato chips or just crisps. Like, it's a bit quirky. So today I am going to be testing out this pre-made mix that we just need to add a few ingredients to let you know whether it's worth your money. So what comes inside our kit? Today we are working with a bag of cookie mix, which includes ingredients such as malted wheat flour and brown sugar in this very appealing plastic package. And we also have what they call the compost mix. So this is a slightly more intriguing bag filled with the likes of chocolate chips, butterscotch chips, and whole jumbo rolled oat flakes. Let's get started. So the recipe that comes on our very large tin begins with preheating our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly 170 to 190 degrees Celsius, depending on your oven. I have a very sassy oven that runs quite hot, so I'm going with 170. The next step in our recipe is to soften our butter. If you don't have use of a microwave and you need to soften your butter without completely melting it, here is a handy little tip. If you fill a glass with boiling water just for 30 seconds and pour it out and put that over the top of your cold butter, you will soften it very nicely and very quickly. Handy little tip for you. So we have 5 tablespoons, measured very strangely, I know, but in this country we don't measure butter in tablespoons, so I just measured out 75 grams. So our softened butter has to be combined with our cookie mix and 1 single egg on a low speed until moistened. So I'm going to do this by hand because I'd imagine that most of you will be doing this by hand, and I want to kind of represent the exact results you're going to get. So here I have a big ass bowl and I'm going to put my softened ass butter in there. To our softened butter we're going to add this cookie mix, which, can I just say, smells amazing. You can really smell that they've used that kind of malted flour in there, which I like because it would be all too easy to sell a cookie mix that was just basic bitch flour and sugar, but this really has some exciting smells going on in there. To that we will add 1 egg. Can I crack it with one hand today? Of course I can. Okay, so inside our bowl we now officially have our softened butter, our single egg, and our cookie mix. Let's get this beaten together until moistened, as the recipe tells us to. Another quick little tip, but I don't even know if this really counts as a tip. When baking, most of us do use wooden spoons to kind of mix things around, or at least in the UK we do. But honestly, if you can, I would get yourself a spatula because they do the same job as a wooden spoon, and it also makes scraping your bowls a lot easier. So I must say it's not a super kind of detailed recipe because, as I said, it just tells you to mix these ingredients until they are moistened. I don't really know whether that means that this is okay, you know, that things are still kind of lumpy, or does it mean to combine it into a dough? I would criticize that for being quite unclear. I'm gonna keep mixing until it makes a dough, because from past experience, I know that lumps of butter in a cookie are just a recipe for giant gaping holes, crispy bits, and kind of just disaster, really. I'm starting to remember why I have an electric mixer. I promise I'm not neglecting you. Okay, so we are now at a point where everything is pretty much mixed in. We have a nice, delicious smelling kind of cookie dough in here. So the next step in our recipe is to stir in the compost packet, the crushed potato chips and crushed pretzels until everything is evenly distributed. So let's do that. So in this compost mix, we have chocolate chips, we have butterscotch chips, which I'm really excited to use because I've never even really heard of those before. We have jumbo rolled oats for a bit of texture, there's ground coffee, there's powdered milk, there's all sorts of things in here. So let's just get that into our mix. So our compost mix is completely added. The next step is to add a cup of salted potato chips. So I'm just using a classic Walker's Ready Salted Crisps for this, and because I don't know where my cup measures are, I'm using an actual mug. The final ingredient to add to our mix are salted pretzels. So we're to add half a cup of salted pretzels, which I've just kind of eyeballed here. I'm just using a Sainsbury's own brand salted pretzel. Nothing fancy, you're talking about kind of £1.50 a bag. And I'm just gonna add those straight into our mix as well. Now I'm just going to kind of gently mix things in, because when it comes to cookie dough, when you've already added the flour, you don't want to stir too much because you can activate the gluten in the flour, which is the protein that makes things chewy and kind of dense almost. So even though obviously we want an element of chewiness to our cookies, we don't want them to be tough. There's more like stuff than dough, if that makes sense. This is just an absolutely insane concoction, but it's all mixed up. Now it's time to bake it. So the recipe tells us to drop golf ball sized rounds of dough onto baking sheets 3 to 4 inches apart from one another. Okay, I am back. I have rolled 8 of these little kind of golf ball sized chunks of dough. Bearing in mind, I do not play golf. I've had to kind of guess golf ball size, and I think that's about right. The recipe says that this mixture makes 12 cookies. I have rolled 8 of them so far, and I think honestly I might actually get some more out of it. I might get up to 16 if I keep them at this size. The recipe says to bake them for 10 to 12 minutes until they are puffed, spread and browned slightly around the edges. So I'm probably going to err on the side of 10 minutes at the moment because I think these are slightly smaller, and let's see how we get on. Good luck, little cookies. I have faith in you. Okay, we are back. I baked the cookies for 12 minutes. Now I baked them in kind of 2 batches. Even though the tin said I would get 12 cookies, I actually got 14. So clearly my golf ball size judgment was slightly off, but I kept an eye on them the whole time they were baking, and they appeared to have puffed up, spread a little bit and browned around the edges like they were supposed to. So I think we've done okay. The second batch have just come out of the oven, so they are still warm, but the first batch have cooled down nicely. So let's see what the compost cookie tastes like. So on the face of it, they definitely are not the prettiest cookies that have ever been made. So they're pretty kind of lumpy and bumpy. They've got a lot of their ingredients just kind of sneaking through. You can see some pretzel, you can see some of those crisps, you can see some chocolate chips and a couple of those butterscotch chips. Though I will say, despite the fact they are not particularly nice to look at, they're also not kind of too dissimilar to the picture on the tin, which is good because that's what we're aiming for. So as you can see, they are nice and kind of golden brown underneath. You can hear that they are firm, but I can also feel that they're quite kind of soft. They've got a little bit of give as you kind of press them, which we like because crunchy cookies are just depressing really. Though I must say my entire kitchen and this cookie smell predominantly of coffee. There's very little else I can actually smell, which is a lovely smell, but definitely not what you think of when you look at this. I can't really smell much chocolate, I can't smell those pretzels, and I can't really smell that nice malted flour smell I got earlier either. But let's stop sniffing it and start tasting it. Let's see if our compost cookie mix is any good. That is certainly, if nothing else, a carnival of texture. So to give you a little close up, you can see that even though we have those kind of crispy edges and all those crunchy pretzel and crisp pieces, the inside of the cookie is nice and soft, gooey and quite doughy. You know, we've got a real nice texture as we tear that apart. The dominant flavor, much like the smell, is still that coffee. Everything else is definitely playing second fiddle to that coffee. I can't really detect those butterscotch chips. There's a good texture from the pretzels and from those crisps, but not a whole lot of flavor. There is a good mix of sweet and salty in there. It's definitely the kind of cookie you could eat 2 or 3 of in one sitting, because it's got that good balance of kind of savory and sweet. But overall, flavor-wise, I can't say that I'm actually particularly impressed. The texture, as I said, spot on. You've got crispy, you've got chewy, you've got gooey, you've got crunchy, a good mixture of everything to keep your mouth coming back for more. I mean, it's definitely a fairly unique cookie, and I do love the concept. It's combining everyone's favorite junk foods into one convenient edible package. You know, if you're the kind of person who likes eating crisps and chocolate together, or chocolate and pretzels together, this is definitely a fun combination for that. I just feel like either the quantity of coffee that they've put into this mix, or just the coffee being there at all, makes these very much coffee flavored. And I'm someone who loves coffee, so it's not that I'm picking up on that flavor much more than the average person would, for example. It's just a bit too strong, I think. If this was advertised as a coffee compost cookie or some kind of mocha flavored cookie, the flavor would be much more impressive, but I'm afraid everything else is muted compared to that coffee flavor. Overall, it is still enjoyable. The recipe itself was definitely sparse in instruction, but it still baked up a pretty impressive batch of cookies, and I actually got 2 more than I was promised, which I can't complain about. I enjoyed the packaging of this. I enjoyed the way it was split into 2 separate things, and then it came in this handy tin, because this can now be reused because it's a great little size. But I must say, it's definitely not a cookie mix that I would come running back to. If you like this kind of idea of everything packaged up into one mental snack, you might enjoy this, but for me, it's definitely not the best cookie I've ever had, so I'm not going to be raving about it. But overall, I would rate this cookie mix a 4 out of 5. If you're in the UK or outside of the US at all and you would like to try this, I believe these are available on the Milk Bar website, or if you're ever holidaying in America, these are available from their stores. Next time I will be reviewing a more British specific product so that it's kind of closer to the hometowns of my biggest viewership. But let me know what you guys think of this series. Is this something you'd like to see? Would you like to see me test these things out? Or would you just like to see me eating junk food and baking my own recipes and stop being lazy by making other people's? Let me know in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new here for more videos much like this. In the meantime, I have some more cookies to eat. I will see you for the next one.